so confident they'll make the playoffs that if they don't, I'll wear a Giants or a Dodgers jersey on one of our podcasts.
You don't need the pressure of always trying to perform here at the major league level, so that might be a good thing.
You talked about the athleticism of this Padres team last time out, and he just embodies it.
Well, hello, everybody. It's another edition of the BCSC podcast. Andy Bishop, Brian Vilvin, Thomas Conroy. It is playoff baseball, and for the first time in 14 years, we can say that it's happening in San Diego, California, as the Padres will be opening up against the St. Louis Cardinals. Brian and Thomas, good to see all the brown and yellow. Brian, where are the emotions at right now?
Whew, it's hard to think that there will be a playoff game in San Diego that involves the Padres. It's been a long time coming. I'm really excited, just proud of what this team has accomplished. Second best record in the National League, best winning percentage in franchise history. And just like a really likable group of guys, really easy to get behind. And the fact that this is the group and they're wearing the brown and gold, the team to bring San Diego back to the playoffs, maybe a year earlier than most people had anticipated. I couldn't be more fired up, and it's going to be hard to get any sleep before tomorrow.
Thomas, where are you at, my man?
Andy and Brian, this is what I love about San Diego is the atmosphere when a team goes into the playoffs and that anticipation of the first game. Because this weekend I went to the San Diego Padres pop-up shop in University Town Center, and the atmosphere around the store was just like a giant gala. I mean, everybody was talking about their favorite moments and playoffs and past. It was, different age groups. Everybody listened to each other's story. I lived it in '98 with the Padres that year when they went to the World Series, and then with the opening of Petco Park. And now this just seems like another chapter in my history as a San Diego sports fan. And with all the Charger, this going to tailgating at the old Q during those playoff runs were memorable, and now this is just like another added. I'm really psyched for it, and I'm really kind of psyched for what this series brings. And then after that, this mysterious bubble that we head to is going to be even more fun to watch moving forward.
Yeah, crazy year, and the Padres and Cardinals meet in the 4-5 matchup in the National League. Of course, 8 teams in each league making it. The Padres have been to the playoffs 5 times in their entire franchise history. That dates back to 1969. So in over 50 years, only 5 playoff appearances. The Cardinals are the only National League team to bounce the Padres from the playoffs. You've probably heard about that this week, or you've just thought of it over the Padres' history. In 96, 05, and 06, of course, the other 2 playoff appearances for the Padres, they go to the World Series and lose to AL opponents. So the Cardinals are our nemesis, to say the least. That's even though on paper we look to be a better team than the Cardinals, that just is something that pops up in my mind. Brian, these teams, they're pretty similar ERAs, so the pitching staffs, you could say would go toe-to-toe, but it looks like the Padres have the advantage offensively. They've averaged about 5.4 runs per game. The Cardinals only 4.1. Where do you see the Padres stacking up against the Cardinals here?
I think that's the big thing there, Andy. Right now, the bullpen has become the strength that we thought it was going to be. I'm interested to see how Lamet and Clevenger, if they even make the roster for this series. If those guys are there, that's a big boost to the starting staff. But we've also got some other quality starters that can go if they need to. But that lineup is a beast. I saw a stat where the number 9 hitter for the Padres this year, it was mostly Profar and then some Grisham in there. It was the most prolific 9-hole in MLB history. So in terms of OPS on base, it was the best that any team has ever had production-wise from the 9-hole. And that's including all the American League teams that have had the DH for many years. So you go, and our 9-hole was better than more than half the league's 4-hitter. So the cleanup hitter is supposed to be, the main person. Basically, you look 1 through 9 and even throw in a 10th player, depending on if it's a righty or a lefty, and you got Pham or Moreland in there. And there is not an easy out. These pitchers are going to have a crazy hard time against a lineup the likes of which they haven't seen at all this year. So I think the Pods have the edge offensively. Again, the pitching staff is such a question mark even right now, less than 24 hours before the game. But that lineup 1 through 9 on the Padres side is beastly. And the Cardinals lineup looks kind of like what the Padres lineup looked like through the mid 2010s. Like really hard to find a guy hitting near 300. It's we have the huge edge.
Yeah, you mentioned Profar. Just real quick on him, I remember you were big on him like that first week or two, Brian. He was hot, and then he kind of slumped midway through the season, but he hit 373 over his last 24 games. So that is certainly promising in the back end of that lineup. Let's go back to the starting pitching for the Padres. I know that's something you've really kept a close eye on this season, Thomas. What are your thoughts on that going in, especially with the question marks of Clevenger and Lamet?
Yeah, to be truthful, I'm a little surprised that they're starting Chris Paddock in the opening game just because he struggled. And if you look at his numbers in the last 7 starts, he went 3-4 with a 4.59 ERA. And to me, that doesn't just give you the right to pitch that first game, especially when Zach Davies has pitched incredible, especially in that same time frame. Davies has gone 4-2 with a 2.38 ERA. I thought the Padres were going to slot him in in game 1, and then kind of balance it out with Lamet and Clevenger, just the way they were talking, because they seemed optimistic in their throwing sessions. So if Lamet is all the way back healthy, that's a good 1-2 right there with Davies and Lamet. But if the Cardinals win a game and then you have to go to game 3, it doesn't matter how long Clevenger goes in that final game, because all hands on deck, you're going to play that game like a game 7. So it doesn't matter how many innings you start. It's just how effective you can be to get out, and then you go from there in the bullpen. I'm not against Chris Paddock. I'm just saying his stats doesn't justify a game 1 start. And you want to really put a doubt in that opposing team's mind with an effective start in that first game. And right now, if I don't have confidence in Chris Paddock, how can the Cardinals be a fear of him tomorrow afternoon at 2:00?
Yeah, that's a good point, Thomas. Paddock, he had about a 3.3 ERA last year. We were looking for him to kind of go off of that going into this year, and he's just struggled. So, Brian, what do you think the strategy is here for Jace Tingler and starting Paddock? You think, they're just going to try to get 5 innings out of him and then go to the bullpen and maybe go with Davies in game 2?
Yeah, well, so Davies, on his regular rest, he'd be set for a game 2 start. So I think by having Paddock pitch tomorrow, I think that means that we're definitely not going to see Lamet in this series. I think if there was any chance we would see Lamet, then Davies would go game 1. And then, like Thomas said, try to slot in Lamet and Clevenger after that, because Clevenger threw his bullpen today. If he is going to pitch, the earliest he'd be available is that 3rd game on Friday. So I think this is pretty much closed the book on Dinelson Lamet for the wild card round at least. And his injury happened after Clevenger. So I feel like he should be behind Clevenger in terms of availability, because they have a similar type of injury. But I think they want Davies on his normal rest, and Paddock has the potential. He has that crazy stuff where he can get a ton of swing and misses, a lot of strikeouts. He's got that overpowering fastball. A lot of the teams in the NL West have figured that out, and the Dodgers, the Rockies, Giants, those teams hit him pretty well. But when he pitches against the other divisions, he tends to have a ton of success. And in 2 starts against the Cardinals last year, he had really good numbers, only gave up 1 run over those 2 starts. So I think this is the type of lineup that Paddock could potentially go out and dominate. And if you get a solid start like that and some run support, man, you use Paddock in game 1, win that game, and then you've got the option for Davies, Clevenger, some more aces in the hole. I think they're taking a bit of a risk here, but putting their trust in one of their guys, in Paddock. Let's see how he delivers. This is the biggest moment of his career so far, and I think he may be able to show us a little bit of the glimpses that we saw last year.
Sure. Yeah, I think going into the season, if you would have told us that Paddock was going to start game one in our first playoff game, we wouldn't have been surprised.
Yeah.
He would have been our workhorse, a guy that we know brings the intensity. Let's hope that he, kind of takes that and puts it into more of the execution aspect and can come out strong. Thomas, let's move over to the Cardinals starting rotation, and I have to bring up this guy's name, Adam Wainwright, who will be starting game 2 for the Cardinals. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure he was the final pitcher against the Padres in that 2006 game 4 that bounced the Padres from the playoffs. A young Adam Wainwright who finished us off, and now he's having pretty decent success at 39. So they got him. They've got Jack Flaherty, good young starter, hasn't had as good a year this year, who would start game 3 if necessary. But then they have Kwang Hyung Kim, who will be starting in game 1, the lefty. Do you think there's any chance that the Padres struggle? Sometimes you go into the playoffs and you think pitching has the advantage. What do you think, Thomas?
Well, I know Kim has had an outstanding season. I think he finished his ERA either right around 2 or just a little bit above it. So he's their ace, and he's done a tremendous job for the Cardinals. I'm just amazed at what the Cardinals have done. I mean, they missed 17 days of this crazy 60-game season and played 53 games from August 15th until the end. When does fatigue set in? I mean, this is where I really just kind of scratch my head. I think the starters, Jack Flaherty, who you mentioned, Andy, he struggled all throughout the season. It's been one good start, then two bad starts, and then one really horrible start, and then he comes back with a decent outing. So he's been thoroughly inconsistent for them. I just got to imagine that their bullpen has to be dog tired. And for the Padres, as Brian has mentioned all through our podcast through the season, is you love their approach at the plate because they extend at bats. And I think that has to be approached going into tomorrow, is make him work, and then hopefully we can get him out. Hopefully after maybe 5 innings, and then try to work on that bullpen of the Cardinals and see if we can do some damage there. The Padres are great at kind of getting a lead and then just chipping away at it and just extending a run every inning after they get that lead. And that, I think that's been a solid game plan for them all season long.
Yeah, great point, Thomas. Brian, I want to get your take on what do you think the Padres will kind of do with their lineup against Kim in game 1? Of course, as Thomas said, he's the lefty. We know we're always going to have Machado, Tatis, Myers, Grisham batting in those same spots, but there's always going to be a couple interchangeable positions. So that means left field, that means first base, that means the DH. Where do you think the Padres are going to go in game 1 in those positions, Brian?
Well, facing a lefty, I mean, I think Jurickson Profar has cemented himself as the left fielder, whether the pitcher is a righty or a lefty. That means that, and then Hosmer being the first baseman. So Pham and Moreland are kind of the odd men out there. So I feel like Moreland, if he's going to get a start over Pham, it would only be against righties. So tomorrow, I'm sure Moreland will be coming off the bench. And what a valuable piece to have coming off the bench in a playoff game if you need a late bop or something. He's been swinging the bat a little bit better, making a lot better contact recently. But the way Tingler's been doing it against lefties in the last few weeks has been going 2 righties and then a lefty, then 2 righties and a lefty, 2 righties and a lefty. So I think Tatis will lead off, followed by Machado and then Hosmer. And then I think you'll have some combination of Myers and Nola in the 4-5 slots, and then Cronenworth at 6. And then got to fly. Sorry about that. And then some combination with Grisham batting 9th, Profar in front of him there, and I'm forgetting somebody.
DH.
Oh, Tommy Pham. Yeah, Pham in there. So maybe Pham 7, Profar 8, Grisham 9. So I think, we'll have that 2 righties and a lefty all the way through the lineup, because that's kind of how Tingler's been lining it up.
Hey, Can I ask you a question? How do you like that approach of Grisham and then in the 9 hole and then Tatis in the 1 hole, getting 2 leadoff batters going? If it kind of helps you out in scoring runs as far as getting base runners on for your big bats.
I mean, I love it. Whether it's Profar or Grisham, both of those guys give you such good at bats at the 8 hole, but it just doesn't ever feel like the lineup is turning over. Like there's no leadoff guy. Everybody who comes up is a leadoff guy. Like the entire lineup, 1 through 9, like they just keep going through. Like it's not a huge drop off at the back end of the order. So that's when it's really tough on the opposing pitchers. They don't get to take any breaks later on. So it just, whoever you put back there, they're putting up huge numbers, and Tatis is going to come up with people on base, even if he's leading off, and with opportunities to drive in runs. And I think we're going to see a version of him that we've never seen before. The bright lights, it's going to be an afternoon game. So, but the idea of, the playoffs and the pressure, and I feel like he's the kind of guy who has that mentality to step up and perform like we've never seen before.
Yeah, certainly a situation that he lives for. And going back to that point, that question you asked, Thomas, initially I did question that. Why are you putting Grisham in the 9 spot, your normal leadoff guy? But yeah, Brian said it. I mean, that's bringing guys around. In theory, you want to have Tatis and Machado at the plate with runners on base, but this Padres lineup up and down the lineup, everybody's getting on base. So there's probably something analytics-wise that Tingler put behind this. So I certainly don't question it at this point. All right, guys, let's go ahead, Thomas.
Just one more question, sorry. With the questions as we've been talking about with the starting rotation, where do you guys put Garrett Richards, and what is his role in this wild card round? How important is he? Will he make the roster? Do they need him right now in this roster position right now with the question marks with Lamet and Clevenger?
I think they need him. He obviously hasn't had a stellar season, but he is that guy that can be effective out of the pen. Hopefully, get you 2 to 3 innings. If Paddock or if Davies does struggle, so I think he has value, especially if the Padres do advance and games get longer and we have to put more arms in there. I think he could be a key piece.
Yeah, I think he's the kind of pitcher that if we see him, it's going to be to spell a starter early in the game. So whether that's because like a Paddock or a Davies are getting roughed up and they went and bring someone else in to, give a different look, stop the bleeding, or if Lamet happens to go or Clevenger happens to go and they get injured, that's when Garrett Richards comes in. So I think he is basically going to be in the role of a bridge, like a gap between the starter and the back end of the bullpen, which has been really solid, give you 3 or 4 innings of someone who has quality experience. So if he doesn't pitch, that means that the starters went a long way and fed it to the back end of the bullpen, and that would be great. If he does pitch, it's going to be really important because it means that there's some type of bleeding going on and he's there to stop it.
Yeah, I want to get your guys' thoughts on the bullpen. It seemed to kind of come together a little bit towards the end of the season with the acquisition of Trevor Rosenthal, who is just absolutely dominant in most of the year, but especially in a Padres uniform. Drew Pomeranz, his consistency all year long. Outside of those guys, though, we've had question marks this season. What's your confidence level, Thomas, with this bullpen going into this series?
Pretty high, and it's pretty amazing because 2 weeks ago I had no confidence whatsoever in this bullpen. I think finally everybody's kind of gotten their role. I'm going to leave Rosenthal to Brian because they've had a Twitter love affair. If you've read it, it's pretty graphic. I'll leave him to talk to him about that. But everybody else, I love Pomeranz. I think he's the perfect 8th inning pitcher. He has that mentality of being a closer, but he fits perfectly in that 8 inning role. And right now, what it really comes down to, I think, in playoff baseball is just getting 1 inning out of your guys. So once you get the lead and you felt that your starting pitcher has gone long enough, then just go 1 inning with everybody else, and that's Pagan. I mean, you could put a whole host of names. Nat Schramm, we'll put all the guys' names in. Pierce Johnson, I think, is really an unsung hero. I think he's done a heck of a job this year coming out of nowhere. and when I have to look you up just to find out what your history was, and because you impressed me that much, I tip my hat to him because he's done an outstanding job from when I first heard about him in the summer camp until now, all the way through the season. So I think the bullpen right now, everybody understands their role and everybody's confident. And it's kind of funny because watching this final weekend up in San Francisco, you see that little swagger on this team now is starting to get. And I just love the way the interaction with the team in the bench when the camera kind of hit the Padres bench all throughout the weekend. So they're getting their swagger, they're understanding their roles, and now they just kind of look like they were just getting ready to kind of count away the time until tomorrow at 2:05 when they play their first game. So I'm very confident in the bullpen.
Brian, what are your thoughts on the pen?
Yeah, I agree with Thomas. And one thing I will say about Trevor Rosenthal is that he has totally embraced the city and the fans and just the culture and the community. That's one thing that I could say about everyone who's been brought in. It seems like everyone's really proud to be a Padre and like proud to represent our city and our team. And I don't feel like it's always been that way in the past. When you get these guys in via trade, they're just kind of like, whatever. These guys have all embraced it and taken on the challenge of like, hey, this is a city that's never won anything ever. And they want to be the team to bring that for us. So just really excited about that. And then with our bullpen, we got guys like Austin Adams, who made a couple appearances late in the season after that knee injury. We got him from Seattle, and he looks nasty. He's got that crazy slider, almost unhittable. There's just so many weapons. There's even, guys like Tim Hill who have good stuff. And if we have a decent lead, those guys can come in and you don't have to use Pomeranz or a Rosenthal in that type of situation. So we've got a ton of options, and the bullpen is shaping up the way we kind of envisioned it, just a bunch of different names than we thought we would have at the beginning of the year. And I'm interested to see, I think the biggest question mark for me is how the Cardinals bullpen is going to line up. The Cardinals played 11 doubleheaders this year. So they played 22 7-inning games. So they've been in this mentality of like, the game ends at the 7th inning. So we got to win it by then, and then they're done, and they don't have to play the next 2 innings. The Padres scored more runs after the 7th inning than any team in baseball this year. So in the 8th and 9th innings, the Padres have scored more than anybody. So St. Louis, when their game normally ends in the 7th inning, that's when the Padre bats really come alive. And I think that could be the huge difference in who wins this series.
So got to tell them it's major league rules, not high school rules.
That's right.
There you go. Brian, you talked about this Cardinals lineup. Nothing really concerned you. Obviously, Paul Goldschmidt is having a bounce back year. He's been a solid vet. But really nobody else jumps off the page for you. They still have Yadier Molina, who's been with him. I think he played for the Cardinals back in 05 and 06 when we played against them. But is there any concern at all in that lineup for you guys or with their pitching staff? I mean, anything at all, Thomas?
They have guys that I remember had great playoff hits that I always get nervous when they come up in clutch situations. I know Matt Carpenter doesn't play that much anymore, but still seeing him come off the bench maybe as a pinch hitter would make me a little nervous. And the guys you mentioned, and I think it's kind of like that's the unknown, is we really don't know what this offense can kind of bring on and I think that always concerns me heading into a playoff game, because you usually understand how to pitch the star players or guys that and now all of a sudden we're kind of in the unknown for like, who's this guy Edmund? I don't even know what he's doing. Is he related to Jim Edmonds? I got confused at first, but it's just those aspects of it. But really to me is when Goldschmidt comes up, be concerned and keep it away from him. And then if everybody else kind of if the other team members beat us, so be it. I mean, I'm not gonna I don't want to see it, obviously, but I'm not the Padres just got to remember to stay within their game, but don't let these guys kind of get pesky hits. Oh, that I hate those playoff little dumpers out in the short in the short outfield just annoy me. Sorry, I'm ranting.
Brian, anything jump out to you with the Cardinals team?
No, it's interesting because the way this season is shaped up, and the fact that we only played within our division, and then our sister division in the other league. I've pretty much only paid attention to the teams on the West Coast and the teams that we were going to play against. So when you look at a team like the Cardinals, all you can really look at is the numbers, having not watched them play at all. And the numbers are just not there. They're not good. Obviously, they played a lot less innings than everybody else, so like the power numbers are going to be low. But 6 home runs leading the team. We got 3 guys with over 15 home runs and 5 guys with double-digit numbers, and like just overall, the numbers are. You look at it and you're like, wow, the Padres should steamroll this team. But again, as you said at the beginning, Andy, it's the Cardinals. It's the only team we've ever lost to in the playoffs in the National League. And I was so hoping it wasn't going to be them, not just because I don't think they're as good as the Padres, which they're clearly not, but it's because it's the Cardinals. And this is a hump we got to get over. But this is the year we do it.
Exactly.
We're going for the Dodgers. And
Full steam, baby.
Right.
Okay, I don't want to keep like being negative here, but I'm just kind of like got worst case scenario in my mind. If the Padres lose game 1 and they're down game 2, or they're in a game 3 situation and they're losing, what is it going to be that has gotten them there? Like, what has gone awry that puts this series in doubt for the Padres? What component would you say, Thomas?
I would think it would be the starting pitching and possibly Tingle not having a lot of options, like Brian mentioned, of having that bridge gap to his bullpen. That will concern me. I think Paddock tomorrow has to pitch at least 5 innings for me, just to make me feel comfortable. And look, I don't deny anything anybody's saying here, right? Paddock can turn it around. He hasn't shown it, but he has the talent to do it. And that's it. I don't think it will be the offense per se, because this team has hit pretty much good pitchers in the National League West. I mean, that one game, the game against Clayton Kershaw, he wasn't fooling them at all that night. So I don't think I don't think there's a team that can shut them down for 3 consecutive games, and that's saying a lot for an offense.
Yeah. What about you, Brian?
I think it's going to be command of the pitching staff. So, like, are we walking people? Because that was a big thing. That was one of the reasons the bullpen struggled so much at the beginning of the year, is they had no command. When you walk 2-3 guys in an inning, all it takes is 1 base hit to really ruin things. So if it's pitching staff, the command that they pitch with and control over the strike zone, especially a guy like Davies, he doesn't walk a ton of people, but he's got to be pinpoint with his accuracy because he's throwing slower, and he's got to make people miss right on the edges and be flirting around the edges of the plate. So that's what I'm going to be looking for, whether we're throwing strikes and good strikes in the areas where they can't be hitting them.
Yeah, I have such confidence in this pitching staff, even if it has to be a bullpen game, so to speak, that, I don't see them giving up 4 or 5 runs at most in a game, and the offense should score that much. But my worst case fear is that this offense goes completely quiet. It should not happen, but it could happen because it's the playoffs and it's San Diego. No, I think that's the only way where we can win this series, is if our offense just doesn't repeat what it's done the entire season. So again, shouldn't happen. Hope it doesn't happen. Confident it won't, but small percentage it could. All right, so that brings me to the predictions, guys. Anybody want to throw something out there? Ryan?
I mean, you know what I'm going to say. This many for us, that many for them. 2-0, Pods win. And not even close. I think we win by at least 3 runs in each game.
Strong words. Thomas?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a sweep with the Cards. Put them to sleep and get the sorcerer out of here.
Yeah. I'm going Padres in 3.
Oh.
Make it a
Which game are they losing?
little dicey. I shouldn't say they're going to lose game one, but
Would you be putting that out there, Andy?
that would be the game on paper, just
Mhm.
because of Kim's
Yep.
dominance on the mound. Just to be different, I'm going that route.
Okay. Do the Padres hit a grand slam in this series or at any point in the playoffs?
2.
I say
man.
no.
You
I
say
say no.
no. I'm saying 1. Thomas has 2. Andy's at 0.
Andy the doubter
Look
over
it.
here.
Hey, someone's got to cut down our
Someone's got to be closer to
Thomas and
reality.
his optimism. Yeah.
I just want to win a playoff game, man.
I know, me too.
It's been a long time waiting for us.
Yep.
So, any other series? I know the AL games have already happened on Tuesday, but anything jumping out at you guys from any of the other series? Any other storylines, Thomas?
I watched the White Sox and the A's, and that's a team to keep an eye on because Lucas Giolito really pitched well today, and Dallas Keuchel, I think, is pitching in game 2. And I was shocked that his ERA was right at 2 this year. So he's kind of made a renaissance over there in the American League with the White Sox after he struggled with the Braves last year. So I think the White Sox have pretty good pitching, and that was one thing kind of not watching, the American League kind of threw me off was their pitching, and because you read all about their hitting with Abreu and company. They hit 4 home runs today, so the pitching kind of caught me by surprise in today's playoffs.
I'm pulling for Minnesota and Oakland to at least win a game. Minnesota's lost now 17 playoff games in a row. Can you imagine 17 in a row? I can't. I feel so bad for them. We think we have it bad here, but imagine getting to the playoffs every year and losing every game. Same thing happens to the A's. So I just want one of those, or I want both of those teams to win at least one game, even if they don't win the series. Just win a game.
On a throwing error, no less.
I know, that was brutal. What about you, AB?
Yeah, I think, in this varied year of the 2020 playoffs, in a 3-game series, there's probably not much of a surprise if either team wins in the matchup outside of, I would say, the Dodgers-Brewers series, where you've had such a dominant Dodgers team. I'd like to see if, the Brewers can at least punch them around a little bit and win one. To see them losing that series, the Dodgers, I don't think we'll see that. But definitely keeping an eye on those 1 seeds, the Dodgers, and then the Rays as well. Our old buddy Hunter Renfroe and crew up there. A pretty impressive season to see what they've done when, they don't necessarily have a superstar that jumps out at you. So definitely going to be fun. Good to be a part of it for once.
That's right.
So a lot to look forward to, guys. We'll definitely hopefully we'll be talking again here in not too long for a little Dodgers-Padres preview. One final question, or maybe a couple more here for you. Lakers Heat, NBA Finals, Brian. What you got for the Lakers?
I mean, I think you know where I'm going with this one, but I do think they're going to get it done, and I think they're going to get it done in this many games. I think they're getting a 4-game sweep. I just think the West is so much better than the East this year. Miami has been a really good team in the bubble, but the Lakers have been even better, and I just think the Lake Show gets it done. 4 games, sweep. Miami can drive the few hours down home, and the Lakers will fly home with the trophy. So that's what I see.
Thomas, any chance the Heat can do some damage in this thing?
Yeah, I think they can. They'll win at least 1 game. This will be a 5-game series. I think Brian's we'll have to order a Tyler Hero, not a grinder, because that guy is one of the real up-and-coming stars of this league. He's opened my eyes. They have a few young players on the Heat, but just not their time. They can't handle right now the veteran leadership that the Lakers have, and really all throughout their lineup off the bench as well as in their starting lineup. They're a complete team, and they've shown it. As much as maybe some people hate to admit it, but they've been the class of the league.
Yeah, I like seeing the Heat get there, a surprise team for most across the league. Good to see Eric Spoelstra getting back there as a head coach, where he didn't, need the big three to get him there like he did several years ago. So I've still got the Lakers winning there. I'll go with the Lakers in 6. One more very quick question for you guys. After watching the Monday Night Football game between the Chiefs and the Ravens, Brian, is there any way the Chiefs aren't repeating as Super Bowl champs? We're only 3 weeks into the season.
I know. Well, I picked Mahomes in the first round of my fantasy draft, and a lot of people gave me a hard time for that. But he is going to be worth more wins single-handedly than any other player you could possibly have. So I don't think it's a bad pick. He won my matchup for me last night, and I think he's going to lead the Chiefs back to the promised land. I think the Chiefs are going to win 3-4 Super Bowls over the next decade, and Patrick Mahomes is the reason why.
Have you seen anything like this before at the quarterback position, Thomas?
No, not like Patrick Mahomes. And like Brian, I picked him in the first round, and I was down 30 points in my fantasy league, won it by 10 because of a 40-point performance by Mr. Mahomes. So you're not going to hear me say anything bad about that young man. He's everything. And it's just fun to watch him. I've watched all 3 games that he's played in, and, man, he just makes the position so easy. I mean, my God.
Yeah, he's making it fun to watch. He's throwing underhand passes to his fullback and over-the-top passes to his offensive linemen for touchdowns. I mean, it's just gotten to a ridiculous level. He's out there on the field at recess playing against fellow NFL players. So ridiculous. Thomas, Brian, it's been good. We're excited. We need some Padres wins. Always fun talking. We'll do it again soon.
Take care.